Madam President, last month we celebrated National Aviation History Month. We celebrated that across America, and I want to make certain that we recognize the air capital of the world and the state of Kansas and their contributions to the aviation industry, both historically and still today. My home state of Kansas is an aviation hub. It has a rich history in aviation manufacturing. This tradition dates back to a gentleman named Alban Longren, who developed Kansas's first aircraft, the Longren Flyer, which was fully designed, produced, and successfully tested in Topeka in 1911, less than a decade after the Wright brothers' first historic flight. Clyde Cessna went on to develop his pioneering aircraft, the Silver Wing, in 1911, which was designed and built in Kingman County, Kansas. Clyde Cessna, Lloyd Stearman, and Walter Beach partnered to found the Travel Air Manufacturing Company, which would later be spun off into three companies with global recognition: the Cessna Aircraft Company, Stearman Aircraft, and Beach Aircraft Companies, all of Wichita, where they were headquartered. Cessna, Stearman, and Beach, and over a dozen other aviation entrepreneurs in Wichita produced 120 airplanes each week at the outset of Wichita's aviation dominance in the late 1920s. It was then that Wichita earned its title as Air Capital of the World. During World War II, tens of thousands of Kansans contributed to the war effort by working in aircraft plants, making nearly 26,000 planes, including over 1,600 B-29 Superfortress heavy bombers. Following the war, the Boeing company started testing mid-flight refueling using the B-29 Superfortress and eventually delivering the KC-135 Stratotanker to the United States Air Force in the 1950s. Still one of the premier mid-flight refueling aircraft for the United States Armed Forces. Many of these tankers are stationed at McConnell Air Base in Wichita and some at Forbes Field in Topeka. Other than agriculture, the aviation and aerospace industries in Kansas support more jobs than any other sector, including more than 65,000 aerospace and defense jobs across more than 450 world-class suppliers. Kansas is the global leader in general aviation, producing 35% of all general aviation aircraft in America and supplying 75% of all general aviation aircraft since the Wright brothers' first flight at Kitty Hawk in 1903. You fly on a private plane, you're flying on a plane that is either built in Kansas or the parts were manufactured in Kansas. At the end of November, Bombardier, who has their headquarters, their defense headquarters in Wichita, Kansas, Bombardier delivered its first Global 6500 to the U.S. Army in support of its next generation of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, the ISR platform. 1 week later, Wichita State University National Institute for Aviation Research received a Boeing 747XI as part of a strategic partnership with Sierra Nevada Corporation on the Air Force's Doomsday program. I'd also like to highlight that NIAR, the National Institute of Aviation Research, a component and headquartered on the campus of Wichita State University, was recently ranked by the National Science Foundation as the #1 research and development expenditure university in the country for aerospace engineering. Our state is also diversifying its aviation and aerospace work with companies like General Atomics, and now has 17 Kansas manufacturers working on NASA's Artemis program. We are also developing essential components for commercial space providers such as SpaceX, United Launch Alliance, Sierra Space, Rocket Lab, and Blue Origin. Additionally, Kansas is home to Crew 9 astronaut Nick Hague of Hoxie, who is currently stationed at the International Space Station. Museums across our state highlight our history, highlight our future. They include the Kansas Aviation Museum in Wichita, the Amelia Earhart Hangar Museum in Atchison. I also should highlight the importance of Amelia Earhart being one of Kansans who is a significant component of our aviation history and whose statue now resides here in the United States Capitol. There's a B-29 museum in Pratt, the Mid-America Museum in Liberal, and the cosmosphere, world-renowned. Incidentally, when I talked to the Artemis astronauts, and they brought up the topic and said, "Do you know that you have the best space museum in the world in Kansas?" And they were talking about the cosmosphere in Hutchinson. It showcases the rich aviation history. They point to the continued legacy of excellence in aviation and aerospace in Kansas, and represents a bright spot for our entire nation. I wouldn't want to talk about aviation without talking about Kansas. Kansas has played a key role in cultivating America's leadership in aviation and is home to thousands of engineers and manufacturers who have supported America's aviation heritage now for more than a century. We are, and we will continue to be, air capital of the world, not only because we build airplanes, but because we have leaders and students driving the industry forward with innovation, ingenuity, and relentless pursuit of excellence. We will continue to be the air capital of the world because we have the educational institutions across our state to train and educate engineers and flight mechanics, the whole array of the people necessary for the industries that are located in our state and that will soon locate in our state to have a highly trained, educated, motivated workforce for aviation today and in the future. Madam President, I yield the floor.